we're going to head back to a 6th grade topic, percent applications. So remember this from last year, we're going to have part over the whole. So the part is usually the is portion and the whole is the of portion. Then we're going to equate that to a percent over 100. 100 is just always going to be here. The only thing that's going to change is either the percent, the part, or the whole. So what is 10% of 120? Okay, so what is 10% of 120? So I know the of is 120. What is, so I don't know what this is. And the percent is right there. It's 10%. And this is always going to be 100. Okay? Now I have a proportion. So there are multiple ways I could solve this. I could use a scale factor. I could simplify. I could also do cross multiplication. But the easiest thing to do is always to simplify first and then see where that takes you. So I'm going to simplify 10 over 100 to 1/10. Now I could just go ahead and multiply across. So 10 times what number equals 120? That's going to be multiplied by 12, and then that's going to be multiplied by 12. So in this case, x is equal to 12. Okay? So let's say I wanted to try cross product. I could take 1 times 120, which is 120, is going to be equal to 10 times x, which is 10x. And then I'll just go ahead and do the same thing, divide by 10, and then divide by 10. So in this case, x is going to be equal to 12. So I could get it either way. Okay, now let's go ahead and try the second problem. So 5% of 30 is what? So let's go back to our proportion. It gives us our percent. We already know this is supposed to be 100. And it says of 30. So this is what I'm missing. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and always try to simplify first. 5 could go into 5 one time. 5 could go into 100 20 times. Okay, so this doesn't really help me as much. I could figure out a number times 20 is going to give me 30. Okay, so in order to do that, I could take 30 and then divide by 20. This goes in 0 times here and then 1 time, so we're going to have 20, and then we're going to have 10, bring down this 0 over here, and this is going to be 20. It goes into 105 times, so I'm going to have to multiply by 1.5. so 1 times 1.5 is simply going to give me x is equal to 1.5. okay, also I could have done cross multiplication. 30 times 1 is going to be 30. 20 times x is going to be 20x. And then essentially, I'm just going ahead to do the same thing, 1.5. Okay? Now, let's say we have our third problem. 12 is 20% of what number? Once again, go ahead and set up our proportion. 12 is, so 12 goes at the top. 20%, 100 is always here, and of what number? Okay, so this one, I'm just going to go ahead and simplify by taking the zeros out. So in order to get from here to here, I'm going to multiply by 6. So in order to get from here to here, multiply by 6. 10 times 6, x equals 60. So 12 out of 60 is 20%. Once again, we could have done this with cross multiplication as well. Okay, now let's go through our last scenario. So 3 is what percent of 4? So of 4, and then what percent? Okay, so the percent is what we don't know in this situation here. I can't simplify. Okay, so let me just try a cross product. 3 times 100 is going to be equal to 300. 4 times x is going to be equal to 4x. So let me just divide by 4 and divide by 4. Okay, so let's do this off to the side. Divide by 4. 4 goes in here 7 times to equal to 28. We have a remainder of 2. So that's going to be 20. So x is going to be equal to 75%. And you should have already memorized that 3/4 is equal to 0.75, so that would definitely be 75%. Okay, so that was the basics. Let's go ahead and actually do some application now. So Marcus buys a varsity jacket from a clothing store in Arlington. The price of the jacket is $80 and the sales tax is 8%. What is the total cost of the jacket? So a sales tax is going to be an additional cost that is added on to our original amount. So let's just see what that additional cost is, and then we're going to take the jacket price and then add that sales tax, that additional cost, to equal to our total cost. So here's my proportion. The jacket, the price of the jacket is $80, and the sales tax is going to be 8%. So we need to figure out what is 8% of 80. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and simplify. I could simplify this into 2, so divide by 4, and I could simplify this into 25. Okay? But I can't really do anything with this unless I want to do 80 over 25. So let me go ahead and go back. Alright, I'm just going to simply take the cross product. So 8 times 80 is going to be 640. And then lastly, 100 times x is going to be equal to 100x. Okay, so now that I've taken the cross product, I could just go ahead and divide the number. So I'm going to divide by 100 and divide by 100. So x in this case is going to be equal to 6.4. So I'm paying an additional $6.40. So I have my jacket price, which is 80, plus my tax, which is $6.40, and that's going to equal to my total cost. So if I take 80 and I add $6.40, I'm going to get a total of $86.40. Alright, so as you can see, I filled everything out first in terms of my proportion. I identified that this is 8 over 10. When I simplified it, it wasn't really a number I could go ahead and work with, so I just decided to do the cross product. Let's move on to our next example. So Sharon wants to buy a shirt that costs $20. The sales tax is 5%. How much is the sales tax? What is her total cost for the shirt? So once again, first I need to figure out what is that value of that sales tax, and then I'm going to add it on to my original cost. So Sharon wants to buy a shirt that costs $20. So this is the total of the shirt. The sales tax is 5%, and then it's going to be out of 100, so this is going to be equal to x. Okay? In this case, the proportion is a lot easier, so I could just go ahead and use my scale factor. So 20 times what number equals 100? So that's times 5. I'm going in the opposite direction, so I'm going to have to divide by 5 in this situation. So 5 divided by 5 is equal to 1, so x is equal to $1. My original cost is 20 plus that $1, so my total cost is going to be $21 for the shirt. So the tax is $1, the original cost is 20, so in total, when I walk away from that register, I would have spent $21. Okay, so our next problem. Cabrini goes out for dinner and the price of her meal is $18. The sales tax on the meal is 6%, and she also wants to leave a 20% tip. What is the total price of the meal? Okay, so the sales tax is 6%, and she wants to leave an additional 20% tip. So that looks like I have to combine these 2%. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 20 plus 6, which is going to be equal to 26% out of 100. The total price of her meal is going to be $18. Okay, so I could go ahead and see if I could simplify. This is going to be 13. I'm going to divide by 2, and then this is going to be equal to 50. Okay, so now I could divide by 50. I could take 50 and divide by 18 in order to try to do a scale factor, but in this situation, I think cross multiplication will work best. So I'm going to take 13 and multiply by 18. So 13 times 18 is going to give me 234. 50 and x is just going to give me 50x. So I'm going to go ahead and divide this side by 50 and divide this side by 50. So when I go ahead and do that, I'm going to get x is equal to 4.68. So in total, with the sales tax as well as the tip that I'm leaving, it's going to be $4.68. So I have my original price, and I'm going to go ahead and add $4.68. So 18 plus $4.68 is going to give me a grand total of $22.68. So that's how much I'm going to be paying in total for the entire meal, including both the sales tax as well as that 20% tip that I'm leaving. Now let's go ahead and do this in one more example. So this is percent application, but what we're really doing is multiple percents. What we did in that last problem was identify the important information first, then calculate the sales tax, and then calculate the tip. We could do that separately, but mathematically it's the same thing. So we could actually combine those percents in order to get our total cost at the very end. So let's go ahead and do this one more time. Here's my proportion. I have 15% as the tip as well as 7% sales tax. So 15 plus 7 is going to give me a total of 22. So this is going to be equal to 22%. The total cost of the meal was $60. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and simplify and see if I can make this easier for myself. So this simplifies to 11 and this simplifies to 50. So 50 doesn't go directly into 60, so I think this is a good problem for cross multiplication. So 60 multiplied by 11 is going to give me a grand total of 660. 50 times x is just going to give me 50x. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to divide by 50 on both sides. So when I go ahead and divide by 50, I'm going to get x is equal to $13.20. I have my $60. My sales tax as well as my tip was $13.20. So when I go ahead and add those up together, I'm going to get a grand total of $73.20 for the entire meal. Okay? So what I want everyone to remember from this chapter is if you set up a proportion, you can solve it multiple ways. But first, you need to really set up that proportion in order to really understand the information that you're given and what you're trying to find.